That is who I am.
True. I'll open the meeting and ask everybody to be upstanding for prayers. Prayers tonight will be from
Thank you, Daryl. Let us pray. Loving God, we thank you that we can come to the council meeting, the first, I think, for 2021. Let us pray that we have a wonderful year, that we don't have the setbacks that we had last year, and that the meeting, people can speak freely, be listened to, and all matters resolved wisely. This we ask in your name. And please join with me in the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive them that trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Thank you, Karen. Now come to a record of attendance. Leave of absence as Deputy Mayor. It's not actually shown here, but he did seek that last meeting and it shows on the minutes. Item 2, confirmation of minutes of previous meeting held on the 10th of December. Is somebody prepared to move that? Yes, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Bosky and Councillor Cave. Any queries on the minutes? If not, I'll put the motion all those in favour. Aye. It's carried. Issues raised by councillors 3-1, 3-2, 3-0. Councillor questions without notes. Are there any questions without notes?
Can I comment on 3.2 before you move over?
3.2, yes.
I asked a couple of questions last meeting. One to do with the waste review, and I'll just tell you what the other one was. The other one was the cost recovery for Blades Road building. They were both taken on notice, but I don't see a response in this meeting.
Three, Mr. Mayor, we're still working through those questions.
So how do we keep track? Like in 3 months' time, if we haven't got a response by then, how do we know that that's going to keep coming forward?
Three, Mr. Mayor, I essentially keep track of that in the corporate office, so they definitely will come back.
Right, I think I just didn't know how we did that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cave.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. In years gone by, Mr. Mayor, we used to have certificates or for building requirements, owner builder. Is that still apply to council? I mean, can you still have an owner builder certificate to build your home like they used to have years ago, or has that all changed? Is that still current now to have owner builder?
Three, Mr. Mayor, my understanding is that you still can sit a course and actually receive an owner builder's permit. subject to getting your approval from Mike, but I will take it on further notice and provide some feedback.
Thank you. Mr. Dan.
Any further questions without notice? Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I might just have to leave after the last two questions. Just no point stop sort of. My first question is in regard. I wonder whether the council can do something about having a designated place for a taxi outside the Woolworths building down there. That one up at IGA. There's a yellow line down there. That's for no parking. Given that we have a number of people in the community who their mobility is not the greatest, no disrespectful to anybody, but the taxi pulls up at big people just wondering whether something can be done about that.
Perhaps I'll look, say to our staff, we'll look at that and get back to us with that.
Yes, come back to the recommendation, Mr. Mayor.
My second question, Mr. Mayor, is about the Telstra tower at Marriwa, where all the tourists are about, that gets overloaded, and then you can't get phone calls out, and it makes it very difficult. I wonder whether we can ask Telstra to have a look at that, please.
We need to make them Telstra shortly. And we need to bring up the. Thank you. Any further, Councillor White?
Mr. Mayor, just two quick questions in relation to the roadside slashing and spraying. Question one, what is the total cost per annum per kilometre for both the roadside slashing and spraying?
I reckon we'd have to need to take that on notice.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question two, who is advising and giving recommendations to the Circular Council for both the roadside slashing and spraying?
Who's advising?
And recommending what we're doing?
I'm not, well, it's done as a contract, as I understand it.
Yeah, but as an agronomist, for argument's sake, who would be involved?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we have to take that on notice, but I guess the roads they do and the like would be in the service, or that little detail would be for another person.
Thank you. Councillor Lee.
I'd like to ask if we could investigate a recycling bin that's central in town, possibly somewhere near Woolworths. If we could place something there to give rural people an option that's not ticked, that they could put in there and see how much that would cost to reduce the households' rubbish for rural areas, and also offer another opportunity if someone wants to offload recycling outside of the cycle.
That is something that would have thought that we'd take on notice to Inaugural and staff to do that.
But just to be clear, I'd really like to understand the costs that would be involved in this setup.
That's what I report and come back to us and tell us what that is, and then we can make a decision whether we're interested in doing it or whether we could.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? If not, we'll move on along. Declaration of pecuniary interest, 4.1 or 2. Has anybody got any pecuniary interests? None. Now need a resolution for items 5, 6 and 7. Thanks, Councillor Harris. Second, Councillor Blizzard. Put the motion, all those in favour?
Aye.
Against, carried. Item 5, which is notification of council workshops. Are there any questions on item 5? Thought so, last week. Item 6, Mayor's communications.
I'd like to understand, I wasn't available on the 23rd of December to attend the meeting with Jeremy Rockcliffe, but I'd really like to understand, first of all, what came about, what happened, and maybe actions, if there were any, that came out of it.
Some of our staff, and as a result of an incident before Christmas, which was an health incident with one of our staff, we contacted the Minister because he is a Minister for Mental Health, and to see whether there's any support that we could get from his office to be able to help us understand and see what was available and what extra we could do in our community. So that's why we had the meeting, and we had people here from Rural Health, from Indara, Shack, I think we had somebody, and a couple of councillors and some staff. It was a very good meeting, and he told us why he was so passionate about mental illness, and he's been a counsellor for that for some time. And he asked us for more information and what we actually wanted, and we said, well, the first thing we probably need to find out is what's lacking, and there are some things lacking in our community, and so he asked us to continue to dialogue with his staff, in which our staff has done that, and so we're going to hear more about it and see what we can do for the community to increase not only the awareness but what can be done in our community. It was mainly around youth, because it's been widely recognised that there's not enough done for youth with mental illness. Some people need to go to hospital and go to expensive clinic, which is not really designated for young people. It's not a good place for them to be, so it shouldn't be there. And the other one was trying to get an appointment for people, and this takes you 4 or 5 months when it's really needed right at the time. So that was another issue that was raised as well. Then you got this.
Through Mr. Mayor, the only thing that Minister Rockcliffe probably added to the conversation was that he is aware that in regional areas access, there's a number of roadblocks in terms of the ordinary progression of someone's, dare I say, when they put their hand up for assistance. They can often get to see the GP, but they actually can't actually access the next level of psychologists or counsellors because they're more in a more remote location. And the partners that were around the table, Indara, Rural Health and the like, actually took that on board, and there'll be further dialogue. There's actually a small group in town that are looking to activate a community response to that. I have some correspondence to follow up with Minister Rockcliffe on that basis. So you'll see a little bit more as that rolls through. But he was indicated that he would be on leave for a few weeks after Christmas, so we're targeting a response to leave when he
Anything else? Okay, we'll move on along to 7. Late agenda items, petitions, deputations nil. And then we come down to public questions without notice. Are there any questions without notice in the public? Kevin?
No, you go. All right.
Yeah, go.
Mr. Mayor, I'm
Can you come up close to here because we're on to the.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to, my first question to you is the roadside slashing in reference to Councillor Harris there. The whole municipality is a bloody disgrace at the moment with the state government and the council. The weeds are growing up, thistles are seeding everywhere. You had a reliable man doing the job. Someone, he decided that it was too dear and got someone cheaper. Well, you can see the results of that. Nothing's been done. As an employer of labour, I'm entitled to have a duty of care to my workers. I asked the council what their duty of care is to their ratepayers. If a road catches on side and burns a house down, who's reliable for that? So that's the first question, and it's something that wants doing now, not doing in a month or another month's time. And my second question is, I've ordered the dump out there, and I brought it up with Councillor Oldacre in early December about the weeds and that were growing out there, thistles, Californian thistles, already about to seed. He brought it apparently to the General Manager's attention. Nothing happened. I had a look over the Christmas, still nothing's happened. As of today, nothing's been sprayed or splashed or done anything. You can find money to put a 4-lane road around through the block. Why can't you find money to do some spraying and tidy the block up so I don't get all the rubbish over on my side of the fence? Thank you.
Take it on notice, yep, okay. You will send your response back. Thank you, Bev.
Devin Anderson. This is in relation to the meeting, the council meeting, Community Recreational Centre, where I asked this council here, who answered my questions on that night, and I still have not received a reply. Is there anyone in this council area here that actually answered my questions? If it's not one of you people, who is it? Because I think I deserve an answer. A proper answer, not the crap that comes out of a lot of people's mouths. I want an answer to who about my questions. Is that too much to ask?
No, okay, we still have copies of those.
I would have to review it.
We'll get back to you with it, and because obviously, yes, if you ask questions, there'll be answers that should be given. So we'll take it on notice to get those done. I thought that after those readings, we were going to send something back out.
You have answered a number of questions, but with due respect, I'll check again to see whether Mr. Anderson's questions have been answered.
Why wouldn't it have been followed up? Tell me that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, in terms of, there was a number of follow-ups in questions that were undertaken, but I would have to specifically go and look at whether your questions were answered in that space. A number of officers were tasked to look at that.
Then in relation to that, why were some of these questions answered in stereotype? Almost all of them. Stereotyped answers. Is it too hard to actually give the truth?
Well, I would have thought that the only ones that would be stereotyped is if they were a similar question. And so if it was a very similar question, obviously the question would be, would it say?
Sorry.
Well, that was, you asked for an answer, and that's the answer.
I just asked for one simple thing. I want the person who actually answered my question to talk to me. Not anything else. Come and talk to me about my question. The person, that person, not an organisation, not anyone else. I want the person to talk to me.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Any further questions? Trevor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and my name is Trevor Spinks, and been that way for 73.45 years. I've been here for a few weeks, a few months, so I've got 3 questions. Is that too many, Mr. Mayor?
No, I'll handle that.
You can if you... All right, my first question is regarding our rubbish bins around the town. Smith and Stanley have very good metal rubbish bins strategically located about both towns. Some of these are in very dirty condition on the top and on the lips where the rubbish is placed. You wouldn't want to have your lunch there. And my question is, would council implement a cleaning program on these bins? Sometimes you go to other towns and see them in a very tidy state. Ours are pretty ordinary.
Certainly, through you, Mr. Mayor, certainly happy to have a look at that.
Thank you, Mr. Jim. My second question to you, Mr. Mayor, is in regarding to the signs on state growth roads. I understand that the crash marker system was abandoned some years ago, but the large info signs are still standing on some of our state highways. I mean, one in Circular Head that I've seen. My question to you is, would it be worth discussing with state growth about the possibility of having these removed if they serve no useful purpose ongoing?
I know when they were put up, they were always put up for so long. Now, I can't remember whether it was 2 or 3 or 4 years, and then they were supposed to be taken down. Now, whether that's actually happened, I know that it is abandoned now, and so it doesn't happen, but it would have meant that the last ones that were put up would still be there for 2 or 3 years later. But I would have thought that it's probably about time that they should have been all taken down, but we could investigate that and stop that for sure.
Well, I haven't seen any up for some years, and
We'll have
the big info signs are still,
It's 2 or 3 years since
Yeah. just a thought. Question 3 is in relation to the appalling condition of the gravel road from Spinecop to the fjord, which the fjord is a beautiful area for both locals and for tourists. And my question is, would there be any arm of government who would take responsibility for the upgrade? It's got very large water wash holes right down the centre of the road. My concern is for lower cars that there'll be considerable damage done if it's not attended to.
Council, over the last 6 months, have had numerous letters and deputations about that, and we were told by Minister Getz that there was money only set aside to do that work. But when they're going to do it on, I don't know, but we need to check that out again because it was promised well before Christmas. I would have thought September, October, but it hasn't happened. So we've only discussed it within the last month again, and we do need to bring it to the attention of the government again because it's supposed to be done.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Appreciate it. That could be done. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further? Melissa?
Hi, my name's Melissa Wells. I perhaps have 3 questions as well, is that all right?
Yeah.
So in April 2020, I asked for independent advice in regards to Agritas and the council land, and my concerns were ignored. In the application July 17th, 2020, the Mayor stated, I am a member of the board. I pay personally a share into Agritas, which is an incorporated society. Council has no shareholding in it at all. Which confused me because at the June meeting, he had stated that Agritas was owned by the community. So, due to the lack of your comments, that has now brought me to do a petition in relation to why was the 15.8 hectare block of land owned by council on Grant Street, Smithton, not put up for public sale. I've got over 250 signatures in the last 2 weeks, standing up the main street of Smithton and also doing a small amount of door knocking. But for every signature I received, 3 people would not sign my petition for fear of repercussions from the council. Examples, abatement notices, dog registration notices. Quite a few businesses were worried that you would go around and go through their particular premises and hinder their business opportunities in the community, which we know is happening regularly now with certain businesses in this community. So my question is, what instructions between council and real estate as to the methods of the advertisement given public interest with the 15.8 hectare block? And why wasn't it open listed to the public for the best result of the community?
I'll hand it over to the general manager.
Oh, that's right, because you can't comment on it,
I
can you?
can't comment because of my involvement with Agritas and council, and so hand it over to.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. In relation to your question, Melissa, as you're aware, Deputy Mayor was leading that conversation. Deputy Mayor is absent tonight from the meeting on leave. So I'd be happy to take the questions on notice and have a discussion with the Deputy Mayor and provide you a response.
I have no faith in the Deputy Mayor, and if he was here, I would call for his resignation, as the 2 comments that he made in the Advocate article, one particularly stating that there was no infrastructure on the land, the 15.8 hectares, and that it was too close to the blasting zone. I actually had a meeting with yourself and Norm in relation to that, and the answer to both my questions was that no, there is no infrastructure on that land, and no, that land is not, if anything, closer than the already existing homes that are around the Dolomite already. So I have absolutely no faith in Norm Burberry and his judgment of the location of things in our town or how people feel in our town.
I would be happy to take the questions on notice.
Thank you. My other question is, was an independent evaluation that was given more than the market value?
Could you repeat that for me, please?
Was an independent evaluation that was given more than the market value?
That's correct.
And now I ask all the councillors that are sitting here at this table, why was an amendment not moved to ask for a motion, to ask to get another evaluation or ask for it to be open listed, for example? And how are you representing the constituents of this town if you allowed that property to be sold for less than what it was worth in the current climate with the housing situation? I think it should have went to public auction because there are several people who were interested in it.
Questions like this need to take on notice, but individual councillors cannot be questioned during question time. That's it. Questions are for council as a whole, not just for individual people involved in council.
Yep, so I'll just take that up in my own time, shall I?
Can do.
No worries, thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any further questions?
Yeah, Stokes, proud Palawa man. With the growing Indigenous population, would the council consider putting a new flagpole outside chambers to fly the Aboriginal flag, not just on date of work?
We are looking at doing a reconciliation action plan, and that is something that is obviously going to be done as part of that. And I would expect that the Aboriginal people will ask us to do that, and we want it to be part of the wrap that we have discussed for some time, and councillors are going to do some more work on that in the next couple of months.
Yep. And would the council consider removing the Lord's Prayer from the start of meeting, or including an acknowledgement of country and a reading of the prayer from the Quran to include more demographics that are growing in the area?
Again, that I would expect that a welcome to country for our meetings, not only council meetings, but
Acknowledgement of country, not a welcome.
well, welcome or acknowledgement,
Yeah.
whichever we are requested by the Aboriginal people, so it could be acknowledgement, it could be a welcome, so whichever it is, that's when we'll look at that.
No worries, thank you.
Any further questions?
Melissa Lockley. I just want to know when Teeny's Road is going to get slashed and the whole road needs resurfacing. It's got potholes, ruts, it's just absolutely crap at the moment, and something needs to be done. Nothing's been done out there for 2 years. And every time I come in, they just say, yep, we'll do something, we'll do something, we'll do something, nothing. Like I come around there with all the trucks and stuff, and I'm nearly hit daily from people coming on there because the weeds and everything up the sides are just that bad.
Need to hand that to Danny, or we probably need to...
Yeah, we can take on notice and talk to the depot.
So, would you leave your
Contact details.
details so that we can contact you back?
Yep.
Have you written something up there with your name on it?
Yeah, I filled in the
Okay.
Excellent.
We just need your name and address. What's your name and address?
Melissa Lockley, 61 Typhoona Road, Menga.
Thank you.
I know you're only in charge of Typhoona Road, but that needs doing too, and every time I ring forestry, that's bad. They kept handing me over to you guys, you kept handing me over them, and in the end I rang Crown Land owns it, forestry lease it, and the guy that I've dealt with there is just a rude, arrogant prick, really. He's just nasty.
Okay, well, we'll get back to you with the changes, right?
Yep.
Yes, and we can look at that. And I know that our roads are being slashed at this point in time. We should have a program to go tell you when it's going to happen, so that's really well.
Yep, all right.
Thank you. Any further questions without notice? No more? Move right along with the Now we have, there's some questions that have been answered. 8.2 takes us to public questions received in writing. you got any more to say? The answers are there. Is there anything further on that?
Three, Mr Mayor, the answers have been provided.
Been provided? Yep, that's it. We now come to notice of motion, councillor Aldo.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, I move the motion that was before us for the wet proceeding.
Thank you. Is someone prepared to second that? Councillor Edlund?
Thank you, Mr Mayor, when I put this motion in last week, I hadn't started on that one, but I've since started this week. That doesn't walk away from the fact that the government have been complete in dealing with the road slashing, because not only is it a fire hazard, it's a road safety issue, because there's plenty of places, and it's not from here to Rocky Cave, like from Marrow to Rocky Cave, and some farmers have done their own without any insurance, so they're taking the risk, but the government's failed to do it. It's quite evident that people that are setting up these contracts with these slashing people do not understand what the growth rate is of grass, have no idea, and don't want to know either. And by the way, council needs to be a bit more tardy in making sure their roads are slashed too. But the road safety issue, some of these roads where little kids are getting on school buses, they're not going to school at the present time. But if that hadn't been done, it would have caused an enormous problem. The last thing you'd want to see is some little one get knocked over because they weren't seen. But the other one, you hear the state government have all these fire management plans. There was an ad on the radio today telling the community, the SCS, telling the community you need to have fire management plans. Here's a government letting grass get that high that you can't see the guideposts. It is a fire management thing that they need to address. I hope that's not one running on grass. But we can laugh, but it is a serious matter, and we need to write to the Minister and express the disappointment that has got to this point. Like a couple of years ago, they started down there at Marrow in September, before the grass had actually got going. Then they had to go back and do it again. Well, this time, they might still have to go back and do it again because we've had, the last 2 summers have been pretty good. But the grass growth, the first fortnight in November, you can't control what happens with grass. After that, you can control it. And it's time some of these bureaucratic people in some of those positions started to wake up themselves. And I can't emphasise enough that this letter to the Minister needs to be very heavy on it, because he is the one ultimately responsible. I want on the council to support it.
Thank you. Any further speakers? Councillor Foster.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I support the motion and I support the words that Councillor Aldo has just explained to us. But I also like to move an amendment to the motion. In fact, it could come in Part B, because I support what's written, but I don't think it goes far enough into cover the following. The council, what I'd like to do in the amendment is that the council writes to the Premier and expresses council's dissatisfaction with the lack of commitment and communication with the following issues. B. Spinecop Road Reserve, road repair. South of CD Cape assessment and release. Follow up on the Western Explorer ceiling study. Accuracy of the new signage recently installed on the nut. Commencement of the length of repairs and upgrades on the Marrow to Smithton section of the Bass Highway. Progress on the reopening of the Tarkine Adventures. All issues that we've been bringing up for greater than 12 months without any commitment and communications. I think that should be added to the motion while we're in the mood to talk to the Premier. And the Premier's told us that he is quite open for anything we've got on our mind. And I believe the time is to put this amendment in there and be more forceful than what we have been.
Much is the point of this, is I appreciate your comments, Councillor Polsky, and I think they're very valid, but they're actually something just a bit different to dealing with the roadside vegetation. That's what this set out to be. happy to have you have a motion up here prior to our next council meeting, or if the mayor wanted to accept a motion now along those lines, I'm happy to support that. But I think they're two separate issues. And I support what you just said, don't get me wrong, but I think there's two separate issues.
I couldn't accept it as a amendment because it's really nothing to do with the motion.
It's to do with the state government, sir.
It's to do with the state government, but it has nothing to do with councillor said it's right. It's nothing to do with roadside slashing. I think it'd be far better to bring that up at our next meeting. You need to have a notice of motion next meeting that we actually do that, and I'd be very supportive of that because all these issues are things that we've been talking about, and yeah, I'd support it, but I couldn't accept it as an amendment to the motion.
I accept your judgment, wise a man than I'll ever be, but will you accept the motion from the floor today, because in other months, you know.
I think it'd be better to have a ask a question of the council. It would have been better questions without notice, and you could still do that in the closed January if you wanted to, because we've got a section there of a question in closed agenda, and if you ask that there, yes, I can then say yes, well, I'm happy to get a letter written, so yes, you can do it in the meeting tonight, but not because it's not on the agenda, I couldn't accept it as a notice of a motion, but I can accept it as a question without notice in the closed agenda.
Yeah, thank you for your judgment, but the listed items I've said, will that be on the minutes and not accepted as an amendment?
That'll be on the minutes of the meeting in closed meeting.
No, open meeting now.
Mr Mayor, it would be, because it has been raised on the floor.
Oh, okay. Yes.
So
Even though it's not accepted, it's yeah, thank you. I'll do what you say. I'll bring it up in closed meeting now to get action. That's the reason.
Yeah, no, that's good. I was trying to be helpful, not.
Oh, you know, you helped me. With your voice.
No, a lot of people have said no.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I'll certainly agree with Councillor Hardacre with relation to just a question on safety of roadside slashing. How much can a farmer do outside their laneway or gateway for the safety of their, this has been brought to me, for the safety of their workers pulling out onto main roads? How much legally can they mow along the road? Is there a certain area they can do or not?
Well, depending on what you call legally, I mean, they wouldn't have insurances to cover if something happened. But
as far as council is concerned,
well,
Mr Mayor, I'd be happy to talk to Councillor Woodward and take that on notice and just clarify exactly what parameters in terms of an individual actioning some vegetation management. For example, if it was around a local gateway, council probably has a policy in relation to that, but if it was broadly along the road frontage, as the Mayor's pointed out, insurance becomes a challenge in relation to how that is managed on the roadside.
many people take risks. I mean, I know in front of our place, which is on the Bass Highway, and a lot of other people do as well. But if something ever happened, I'm not sure how you would stand with insurances. There are some things in life which do. As it legally, well, I'm not sure.
yeah, and I'm just bringing this up for the safety of farmers pulling out onto roads.
If you talk to the GM sometime, you could advise you better.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I support Councillor Oldacre's motion, but just going on with what Councillor Woodward just said, can you imagine our district if everyone didn't take pride and mow outside their fence, outside or on their boundary, and what work and how much would that cost council? I know Mr Wells sitting in the gallery there, I called in to him the day he was out slashing. He told me he was doing it to protect his property if there was a fire to come along. And I think that, council would probably have to come to the party with some insurance, because you can't expect council to take on everyone's outside their boundaries or their nature strips. We all do it.
We're talking about state highway now, not council.
Yeah, but there's still people mow outside on the state highway who do as well. There's lots of people do. So, yeah.
Okay, any further speakers to the motion? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour?
Aye.
That is carried. We now go on to Resolution 10.1, and I now advise the council now act as a planning authority to consider the below mentioned report, the time being 6:40. And thank you, Ashley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is an application that council seen before, back in November 2020. It was left on the table. So we've got, I guess, a short summary of events that have happened to date as the report for tonight. And then attached to that is the report from November. We've also had a second report commissioned to assess the proposal, given that in November a number of councillors identified that they would probably prefer an alternate motion in support of the application. So a consultant town planner has undertaken a second assessment, and that would be supporting of an alternate motion. So this evening I believe that there's going to be on the screen an option A and an option B, but as the report was left on the table, the actual recommendation in front of you is as per November, which is for a refusal of the application for a subdivision, dwelling and agricultural use of the site. But there's an alternate option as per discussions from November last year. So I'll leave that with the councillors to discuss.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, point of order, just for, I'm a bit confused. If we vote against the recommendation, we're voting for the second assessment.
Here we go. Either going to vote for option A or option B.
Oh, so we've got a choice between A and B.
Yep.
Are they in the minutes? Option A and B?
Through Mr. Mayor, in relation to, as Ashley's pointed out in the conversation, the recommendation that forms option B is attached to the alternative report that's been provided in the agenda. The recommendations that were suggested in that alternative report form option B.
So are we able to get option B read out tonight, please?
We could. Option B, yeah.
Okay. For council's benefit, option B reads, the proposal is recommended for approval, subject to the following conditions being included within the planning permit issued. See Appendix 2 of the full report. Conditional recommendations below are on pages 16 to 18 of Appendix 2. The proposed conditions SA 2019-013, subdivision of 2 lots and construction of a dwelling at 299 South Road, Menga. The development is generally in accordance with the application as submitted and endorsed plans as listed. A, plan of subdivision titled CT 22723/1, reference -44261-1 dated 6/09/2019. B, the proposed residents R. Underwood and K. Stanley 299 South Road, Menga, plans and elevations prepared by R. Franks Able Drafting Services, project number 19145. 1. Ground floor plan. 2. First floor plan. 3. Roof plan. 4. Elevations north and east. 5. Elevations south and west. 6. Typical section. 2. The building envelope as per the location of the proposed dwelling shown on the plan of the subdivision prepared by PDA surveyors dated the 16th of the 9th 2019 must be registered on the property title specific that no dwelling may be constructed outside the envelope. 3. The development is to be in accordance with the submitted bushfire hazard management plan as prepared by Bruce Harper Environmental Service and Design Pte Limited, 1st of October 2019. 4. A whole farm management plan must be provided to council's satisfaction prior to construction. 5, prior to any commencement of construction of the residential dwelling on the property, it must be demonstrated to council's satisfaction that the Tasmanian pepperberry plantation has been established on the property and that adequate provisions have been put in place to ensure the plantation's ongoing survival. 6, a detailed landscaping plan showing the location of the Tasmanian pepperberry plantation and the individual plantings must be provided to council. 7, the pepperberry plantation must always be maintained when the residential use is undertaken. Over the page. Is undertaken. 8, infrastructure extensions and upgrades to council's assets are to be met by the developer. In the course of undertaking the development, there is to be no damage caused to any council-owned infrastructure or property. 9, a final survey plan submitted before sealing by the council is to show all easements required for power lines, sewerage, water, drainage purposes and legal access. 10, no vehicular access additional to those in the endorsed plans are to be constructed without the written approval of the Director of Infrastructure and Development Services. 11, all vehicular accesses are to be located in accordance with the Tasmanian Standard Drawing PSD-RF01-B1, Guide to Intersection and Domestic Access Site Distance Requirements, and be approved by the Director of Infrastructure and Development Services. 12, all exterior metal cladding, including roof surfaces, is to be painted in or colour treated metal finish in tones that, in the opinion of the Manager of Development and Regulatory Services, reasonably minimise reflected light. 13, before any building or other work commences on the site, the applicant is to submit the schedule for all external materials and finishes to the Manager of Development and Regulatory Services for approval. 14, erosion and sediment control measures that meet the reasonable requirements of the Director of Infrastructure and Development Services are to be implemented and maintained during the development to minimise downstream sediment transfer, particularly with respect to watercourses, stormwater outlets and disturbed ground. 15, a final survey plan is to be submitted to the council for sealing. The plan is to be drawn to scale and prepared in accordance with the requirements of the recorder of titles and will form part of the permit when sealed. The final survey plan is to be substantially the same as the endorsed plan. 16, before the final survey may be sealed, all conditions of this permit are to have been completed. Therein the conditions.
Thank you. I didn't expect it to be so long. I did read that, but I didn't get it in before. Option.
Councillor Aldo.
Mr. Mayor, I support what's just been read out to us as
Option B.
Option B.
Somebody prepared to second that?
Okay, so this,
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bosky, go for it. Councillor Aldo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In supporting this, I go back to my comments. It's something that will bring wealth to this community, it'll bring employment to this community, and that's the reason that we did the stance we did. You know, each of those that voted against us, the other one last time, they can speak for themselves, but that's how we saw it, and I'm pleased that we've now got some words in there. It's a fair few conditions on it, it might be quite onerous, some of those conditions, but let's hope this gets passed everywhere from here on, and we support these people because they're going to bring wealth to this community and bring employment to the community. Everybody will then benefit.
Councillor Bosky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I concur with Councillor Aldacre's comments. Took the words right out of my mouth to quote some famous singer.
I didn't take it out of your mouth.
I took it out of yours.
I'm going to say two great minds think alike.
Absolutely, always been. What I like about this motion is that the planning and the council have decided that there may be alternatives. Certainly the community is made up of a lot of broadacre farming, and sometimes I use the word raped by multinationals. To see a small cottage industry come into our district is something at the start of where we want to go into the future. And I commend the council and the planners to go and look for alternatives to make it happen. And one of the things that's brought home to us over the last 10 years or whatever, we've now looked at a common sense approach that on rural land, the residents have to support the business. What I picked from this is that the residential property or place or infrastructure is not to interfere with the business. A 180 degree change. We now can open this up to other people who want to put housing on areas of their farmland that allow them to live on their land and work their land or their business as long as it doesn't interfere with their business. That is a paramount shift, and I think it's a positive one for our district, and I wish the proponents all the success in being leaders, and I hope they are very, very successful.
Thank you. Any further statements?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'd like to say that they've stuck with this, and I'm pleased to see a successful outcome, hopefully for the proponents. And a lot of people would have given up. There's no doubt about it. They would have seen that brick wall and they would have walked away. To have their faith and belief in this industry, I think for Circular Head to be now ticked on the map for pepperberry industry is great. So congratulations to you.
Thank you. I'd also just like to say I'm pleased that we could find a way where we could all work together to get the outcome that achieves it together. I think that the many conditions that have been put on there really will depend on how we apply those, and as a council, especially the whole farm management plan, I hope that that can be applied in a way which supports a young startup company and certainly doesn't provide any more risks. So that was the only one in there I saw a little bit obviously separate to the normal standard conditions. So I just hope that since we're not really business and farmers as our core competency, that we can support still their business. So I'm pleased that we could find a way together.
Yeah. That's all.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I'm really stoked that this has happened, and I'm really, really pleased.
It hasn't happened yet.
Well, you know what I understand. That this can happen, and it is good to see that we're not losing a family, because I went out and sat down with them, and they said, if this doesn't happen, we will lose a family. And we're trying to build our community and wanting people to stay here, and it's just so good to see that we've all come to this decision that can happen, and to have this young family stay with us. So thank you very much.
Any further speakers? Councillor
Mr Mayor, just quickly, I concur with what Councillor Poski stated about the 180 degree shift. It's great to find a resolution for not only proponents but also for us going forward. Our strategy's in place, and I think it shows us, we talk a lot about value adding our land. 12% of our total land in the municipality is only brought over agriculture, so we have to start finding a way of value adding our grassland, and I think this is a step in the right direction. Whether it's horticultural zoning in future that makes this even more possible going into the near future, that's something for us to decide. But fantastic result if everyone chooses option 2.
I'll go out with Mr Mayor unless I say something. Look, I concur. I'm really pleased it's been mentioned by several councillors that the fact that they could get together and work something through, the planners and the proponents, so I'll be supporting option 2.
Thank you. In terms, I haven't seen any. I probably ought to. No, I think it's a good outcome. I think without the conditions that were here, there was no way that on the previous one that I could support it, because we had nothing there to state what if we were going to allow it to happen, we had nothing to hang our hat on to say that these are the conditions, and it would be unjust of us to ask our staff to do that when they had the report that they had there. So it's going to be good for us in the future when we get something else, I know, and so we just need to continue to work through it. But we've always stated that we want people to live here, and so we probably need to get out of our comfort zones to be able to do that, and this is a good result. And I think now everybody's spoken, Councillor Woodward, you will get your wish because it appears that everybody's going to support it. I now put in motion all those for it.
Option B.
That was the motion. After the motion, and the motion was option B.
Sorry.
So I'll put it again because we got a little confused. Put the motion, all those in favour?
Aye.
Against, carried. Unanimous. 12.1, financial reports. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to put forward the financial reports for the month ending 31st of December 2020. To date, there was no for the month, there was no application received for the first home owners grant scheme, but council acknowledges 10 applications for the year. Council expenditure up to the month of December is tracking to budget with 47% of actual expenditure compared to budget, and council ended the period with net assets of $229 million. If there's any further questions?
Any questions?
I've just got a question, and I'm a bit perplexed now. You've got listed there now under item 2, maintenance, $117,557 and a budget of $196. Can you just expand on what you mean by maintenance and what expenditure would that be covering?
Yeah, so maintenance would be on our plant equipment, also our buildings, and also I believe that a small amount of road maintenance gets to that particular cost code as well.
So in that it would probably be, and if I can use the term, the damage wire approvals.
Yep, that's correct. Yep.
Can I ask if we can get into the damage wire approvals for the last 2.5 years, so we can have an idea of where our maintenance money is going?
So just building maintenance.
Just the building, one
just
new
building
approach, where you spend it on the recreating system or building Scottsdale Road or
Have we that's it on their budget?
Yeah.
no, not sort of itemised where it's spent.
I thought we got one every year where Danny had actually recommended certain amount of projects for the year.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, it does get the department in our operational budget, so there is
Maybe we need to reframe, can you itemise where it's spending it? But yeah, if what you're saying is true, it shouldn't be hard to find, like, how much is he spending on the swirl or Narrowball or something like that. Just give us an idea, we've never had that idea before.
Any further questions on the financial report? If not, is somebody prepared to move the recommendation? Yes. Thanks, Councillor Kay, seconded. Yes. Councillor Blizzard. Put the recommendation, all those in favour? Aye. Against, carried. 12.3, Senior Manager Report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Senior Manager Report is before Council for consideration. You'll notice there in relation to the community section, the next Nourish Community Lunch, Aussie Barbecue, will be undertaken in West Esplanade, weather permitting, on Sunday the 24th of January, between 12 and 3 p.m. to make sure it's a COVID safe event. You're required to register for that. The inaugural Christmas community lunch was held on the 25th of December 2020 with 50 community members attending, which was a really positive outcome. And dare I say, closed some of the gaps in terms of people's experience on Christmas Day in the community, which was great. Mayor's Education Fund will be announced at the Celebration of Education event on the 29th of January at 10 a.m. So if anybody's available, happy for people to come along. Further in relation to the Balance program, Boots on the Ground, mental health program, It's actually been rolled out. The Mental Health Council will be in Smithton on the 3rd of February. And those interested can find the link there and actually register for the event. Healthy Towers Breathe, Eat, Move and Relax program is actually moving forward. We launched on Friday the 29th of January as well, 29th of January, at the Untitled Health Tasmanian office at 2 p.m. Australia Day activities, Australia Day Awards will be Tuesday the 26th of January at the Rec Centre at 10:30 a.m. And then the summer break activities as listed there. Dare I say, a number of the beach and surf activities have already taken place and been very well supported. Some budding international surfers from what I hear. There's a number of also activities around Australia Day at home packs which have been circulated in the community, and I would highlight for everybody's note there as well that on the 26th of January the fireworks will be on from 9:15 to 9:30 p.m. I would encourage everybody to find their own private vantage point to pick that up rather than gathering to keep the event COVID safe. Community Small Grant Scheme, round 2 is out. Was launched on the 20th of January, closed on the 28th of February. Any community members or anybody who's looking for an application pack, certainly the team will help them. There's some notes there in relation to youth, chill and 7-Up. But the stunning photo that's in the report is actually of the refurbished indoor centre down at Swirl, the basketball stadium. A very good outcome there in relation to the refurbishment of the floor. Also, you'll note there in relation to the tourism report, as one would expect with some of the COVID restrictions, the visitors survey information indicates that the majority of our visitors to the region are Tasmanian, but there's still our traditional markets of Victoria, New South Wales and Queensland actively operating there, even though there's been on and off quarantine requirements moving in and out. A couple of other notes there in relation to particularly the MV Coral Discoverer, which was in Stanley on the 9th of January with 41 passengers on board, and my understanding is that they successfully tended people to and from the shore. And there's a number of public information, bulletin information there. In particular, I would draw councillors' attention to the change of the single word in the national anthem. The advice is that we are now one
and free rather than
young and free in terms of the single word that's been changed there. Happy to receive any further questions councillors might have.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any questions on any of that? Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just raised the matter in some other letters that's there. Flood mitigation is a certain amount of money. Are we able to have that discussion about flood mitigation in council workshop? Because that's where we need to be.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I know Daniel and team's been working in that space, so we'll see something come up from that.
Thank you.
Free, just add too that I think those submissions are due tomorrow, so there is one being prepared in relation to some of the stormwater works identified for the stormwater management plan.
The Australia Day Awards, I thought it was 10 till 12, so 10 or 10 to, did they start?
Notes in here say 10:30 if I remember rightly. Maybe you can correct me, Tracy.
The Australia Day Awards 10 till 12.
10 to 12.
That's
10?
Sorry.
That's what's on the email too.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry, 10.
You'll live in cup tea.
If you want to come here.
Come at 10, you'll either be on time or a half hour early. Better than
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further, councillors? If not, is somebody prepared to move the recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Blizzard, Councillor Owens-Harris. All those in favour? Against, carried.
Sorry, excuse me, was that Councillor Blizzard?
Councillor Blizzard, yep. Councillor Owens-Harris. We come down.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I thought I might note for the councillor Potosky earlier in the meeting in regards to questions about those, they're also listed in the SMR report, so the specific two you talked about are on page 247 of the agenda.
Can you just remember to take one off?
247.
242.
247. So there's a listing there of questions.
Oh, right, and not the response.
No,
No, thank
just the
you.
response.
They do put out some preliminaries here.
Okay, we come down to our second lot of public questions. Are there any further public questions? I've only got Trevor left, you'll only stay.
I'm done, Mr Mayor.
You're done.
So, sorry.
I didn't know whether I was looking at dark glass, the other one, which was the ones that I should have looked at. Okay, sir, thank you. If that's the case, I need a couple more motions. One matter listed below, considered in closed meeting, somebody prepared to move that?
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Councillor Woodward, seconded. Councillor Wilson, put the motion, all those in favour? Against, carried. Another one to closure of meeting to resolve confidential matters. Council resolved. Thank you, Councillor Ryan Serres, seconded
Yes.
by Councillor Redmond. Put the motion, all those in favour? Against, carried. Thank you.
What do you have to cover?
Thank you.